T.
Miss 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 T.
Can't wait for you to meet Miss T. She is the T in tea.
And welcome back to Sweet Tea Time with me. I get to be Sweet Tea or Miss T, depending on who's talking to me. And I'm excited about this next series of podcasts because I'm going to be working with you, whoever you is, from my brand new book, which is on pre-sale right now at SweetTeeTime.com, called The Risk of Being Seen. And sometimes visible vulnerability is a risk, especially if you are a business person, if you're getting into new relationship, which is kind of a tumultuous pond right now. If you are someone who's just trying to show up in your professional realm, being seen as a risk, especially if you are like me and you come from a background of trauma. And I think that, before it just was pockets of people, today it's like just all of us, compliments of the world we live in. So I want to dive into some of these critical piece parts of it to kind of help introduce you to the tool that you have available for you, but also to start addressing some of the things that we really don't go too heavy on, but I think now's a good time for us to do that. So off we go. Here's what I want to start with. For years, I would ask this question, what's wrong with me? And I would ask that question because of my response to certain situations like financial pressure, like relationships that turned sour. And it wasn't just like wow, okay, I'm going to figure out how to get through this. No, I would go into something that I like to define as like a self-destruct mode. So I would process and process and process and process inside of my head. What did I do? How did I get here? Why is this happening? Why is this happening to me? Like over and over again. And it wasn't until I started really taking the time to assess myself, get some outside help from, professionals, mentors, coaches, people that would study me as I'm studying me and then help me understand me. And then as I started this 8-year journey to craft a tool to work with young adults, but adults that still have traumatized young adults inside of them that they haven't taken the time to see and to heal. And so, in my investigation and my research and my own personal growth, I discovered some things. And one of them is, I would ask what's wrong with me. And I think that, that comes from me growing up in an atmosphere, a family full of people that, they were also traumatized, but trauma to the point where their mental health suffered tremendously. And I know that's a buzz thing right now is people's mental health, but we really do have some people that are, not mentally healthy. But I grew up in a community of people where it's stigma. You don't talk about it. You certainly don't let on that you have weaknesses, because weaknesses where I'm from will get you targeted, get you killed. It'll get you beat up. So you don't display your weaknesses. You only display strength. So you grow up with like a mean poker face, but you got all this trauma and challenge that's happening and brewing on the inside of you. And at some point, the eventuality is it's going to be unearthed. It's going to be ignited. It's going to be set on fire. And then you're going to find yourself responding in a way that it doesn't make sense for the moment. And so helping, the goal is to help you understand that. So I'm going to pull an excerpt from the book and just share it with you and then talk a little bit about it. Make sure that you take advantage of the comments. This is not something that I'm intending to be a one-way conversation or get the lesson. This is something that I'm really hoping that as a community, we can consider that I'm not the only one that asked that question. You may be asking the same question. What's wrong with me? And sometimes what's wrong with you is what's right with you, just not being perceived as an opportunity for you to shape, heal, or grow. It starts with what's wrong with me. People live for many years believing something is wrong with them, when in reality, they're experiencing a set of named, predictable trauma responses. Chronic hypervigilance or emotional numbness, which I am so guilty of. Fear of visibility, success, or ease. These are all like trauma responses. Another is imposter syndrome rooted in survival, not insecurity. And I don't know that I wrestled as much with imposter syndrome as much as I did with elevation syndrome. And they're two completely different things. And I go over those different things in the book. And the reason I want to draw attention to that is because imposter syndrome is used often to suggest that you're showing up in an arena, an atmosphere, your profession, and you're not supposed to be there. Like you're infiltrating something. When the fact is, if you've worked hard, you've studied hard, you've done your time, you've paid your price, and you end up in rooms at tables where your efforts have qualified you for, you're not an imposter. You're just you showing up in an area that you worked for. But elevation syndrome is different in that it takes you time to get used to the higher altitude. So you got to learn how to breathe different. You got to learn how to see different. You got to learn how to stabilize yourself, your emotions differently, and deal with the fear of being, elevated, which is, that's the equivalent to the fear of flying or looking down from the top of a roof and like all the what ifs happen. What if I fall? What if I fail? There's a difference. But a trauma response that some people have is imposter syndrome, but it's rooted in survival. Another is self-sabotage following moments of progress. Now, this is where I stumbled quite a bit because I would progress and then I would do a little something to kind of push me back a little bit. And the reason I did that is because that's comfortable. I know what it's like right here. What I don't know is what it's like on the other side of this victory. But again, that's a trauma response. And then the others are difficulty trusting safety, rest, and joy. I read this great book called The Mountain Is You. And there's a thing that she talks about in the book called your happy limit. And once you hit that happy limit, you will do whatever you got to do to get you back into your place of comfort because you can't be too happy. And if you grow up in environments that are, where it's constant struggle, constant stress, constant abuse, then joy is not your thing. You can't have that. And if you do have that, you'll be disciplined for having it. And so I think a lot, people are starting to scratch the surface of that now, especially as it pertains to their visibility on social media. So I think everybody has a happy limit. And unless you're aware that you have that happy limit, then you can be hitting the ceiling of it and then, fighting a little bit and not knowing that there's a limit to your happy. And so, learning to not just recognize that you've hit your happy limit, but also recognize that the trauma that's connected to that tells you too happy, too happy, too happy, will start to work against you and force you away from your happy limit rather than you being aware and pushing yourself through that happy limit so you establish a new happy limit. But that's also a predictable trauma response, just making you aware of some things. Another is confusing anxiety with intuition. And if you are womanly like I am and you have instincts, you have intuition and you know what's good, you know what's bad, you know what's right, you know what's wrong, you know what's up, you know what's down. You just know because your instincts tell you. And children have very strong instincts. They have the best BS barometers. And so sometimes when you are anxious, you can confuse that as your instinct telling you, no, don't do that. Don't go there. Don't try this. Don't take a risk. And it's not right. It's wrong. It's 100% wrong because that's how it stunts a lot of people's growth. And then repeating cycles of overworking, withdrawing, or shrinking. These are not character flaws. These are your nervous system's learned responses to environments where being seen comes with a cost. So, okay, that was a mouthful. That was a huge chunk. It was deep with stuff. Now I want to share a little bit around it. The reason that I'm doing this is for two very critical reasons. Number one is what's wrong with you? Maybe nothing. It just may be your practice response to what you had to do in order to survive the circumstances that you were in. Number two, what do you do when you realize, okay, I have these responses. They are not serving me. They're not serving my goals. They're not propelling me forward. They are not making me more secure in who I am or happy in who I want to be and who I'm becoming. And so how do you deal with them when they present themselves? And so I want to cover those two things. Number one, I want you to graduate from the what's wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with you. Everything is right with you, especially if you're recognizing that something may not be working well for you and your health and your happiness. So it's not what's wrong with you. It's you recognizing that, okay, something's got to give because this response right here, this reaction right here is not good. So number one is yay, you see it. Woohoo. And most often that's the hardest part of healing and growing, evolving and changing is seeing that there's something to grow or heal or evolve or change. So many people today live in a very dangerous place called denial. And until you know, like, okay, this is not quite right, you can't do anything about it. And so your "what's wrong with me" response is a good thing. It's actually telling you that there's something that's not quite working for the system anymore and I got to change it. And then number 2, what is the thing? What is the steps? What are the stuff that you could do to kind of help you to graduate from that place once you recognize it? And okay, so I could give you a very long clinical list, but I'm not. Because when I asked for help in this area and somebody did that to me, and it was very overwhelming and it made me not want to try. It made me hit the wall and go right back where I was because it was comfort. And I ended up gaining 80 pounds, eating trash food to cope, and spending a lot of time by myself in my room, listening to Mary J. Blige. So I'm not going to do that to you, but I will give you 3 easy things that will help you take some steps in the right direction, just so that you could start to, your process of healing, and know that it is a process, but you're worth it. So I will gift you this, just in the interest of us, sparring a little bit and me being transparent with you. Just a handful of years ago, not a long time ago at all, I would say I was at the bottom of, the barrel, if you will. I lost everything, like literally everything. And I was an emotional wreck. And I was trying to parent 3 kids while we were living in, a hotel, surviving on donation food, with no money, in about $600,000 worth of debt. And I go over, all of those individual experiences and how I was able to come out of them in the book. So if you want to know details, I'm offering that to you. But really, truly, the first thing that I had to realize is that, okay, being at the bottom or being in this place or recognizing that you have these maladies or challenges or difficulties, just the recognition of them is a good thing. So shifting your thinking, in that, not what's bad about me, but what I realize is a truth about me, is that when I have, for T, when I have financial pressure, here are my triggered trauma responses, and they're learned. So anything that you learn, guess what? You can unlearn and then replace something else with something new that you learned. So, okay, here's how I learned to deal with this, but this doesn't serve me. And everybody around me gets, affected negatively when I respond like this. So 3 ways, once you realize that, okay, I have this thinking, I have this practice, my nervous system is responding to the fact that I just had trauma and my brain is going a mile a minute asking me the question, what's wrong with me? What is wrong with me? So I'm going to give you 3 ways that I've learned how to get out of it. Not a list of 50, just 3 ways to get you started. Now remember, this is a journey. It's a process and a journey. So as long as you're committed, I'm committed. We'll do this thing together. But you want to commit to yourself that, okay, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get on the other side of this thing so that I can grow, so that I can have joy, so I can experience the full, healthy, happy life that I deserve. That's critical. So the first thing that I had to do was, number 1, realize that I had a problem and I needed help getting it fixed. And I think that sometimes if, you are traumatized, you learn to distrust, and so you don't let people in to the mud with you. And so I know that I needed that. That help for me came, through the church that I was attending. They would have these people, they're not, clinicians or, anything like that, but they were people that you could meet with and just, get the stuff out. And I was aligned with someone that had some similar, experiences. And so I was able to walk through the things with them, or just sometimes I just needed to cry. Like that was something I didn't even give myself permission to do, because you got to be tough, you got to keep going, you got to move forward. But that was a first step, is who do you trust that is not a peer, that is someone who's, promoted beyond the experiences that you're having? Is it a therapist? Is it a counselor at church? I had mentors in business, one in particular that I could go to for personal matters, especially as the two worlds started to blend. And so, the first things first was get it out of you. Because if it's all just in your head, in your brain, and you're going, "Rrr, rrr, rrr, rrr," like I was, and you don't have any exterior solution or someone to point you in a direction that knows what you're going through because they've got through it, it makes it very, very difficult for you to problem solve interiorly. So, number one was, who can you talk to that can give you some guidance that you trust? Because that's super key. The second thing is to document the journey, document the process, document the steps. And I find that sometimes people will write down, okay, I want this good thing, I have this good thing, I love this good thing, but they don't write down the bad and the ugly. And so I was super intentional about making sure that as I'm documenting my breakthrough, my growth, my successes, I'm also documenting the places where I stumble. Now, the reason that's important is because then you can identify patterns. And once you identify a pattern, you can disrupt the pattern with alternate behavior. And so, if you are learning that, okay, around this time of year, I tank. And for me, that would be a couple times a year. My birthday has in the past been a tremendously difficult time of year. But that's because that day went uncelebrated for me, growing up as a kid. It was a really, really difficult time. And then again, my birthday happens to fall after a major holiday. And for a broke and broken family, you know, anything financially demanding after a major holiday where people go broke, they just can't, they don't have the resources for it. And so again, I went uncelebrated, unseen, uncelebrated around that time. So around that time of year, just my nervous system to protect me would go into self protect mode. I would shut completely down, I would go numb, and I would expect nothing. And so again, I didn't discover that until I documented, I feel blue today. I feel low. Like I don't know what's going on with me, but I feel like I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to see anybody, but I'm documenting this. And so then I'm flipping back through my materials and I'm learning, okay, so it's 2, 3 weeks before my birthday, almost every year, like clockwork, my nervous system or my body or my little emotional system goes into self-preservation mode and I go, doo. But I couldn't discover that pattern until I started writing down the good, the bad, the ugly. And then for other people's birthdays, like I'm very over the top. I make sure that people feel celebrated and I will do whatever it takes to make sure they feel celebrated. Sometimes I would overextend myself financially or time wise just because I just wanted to make sure that, people weren't being missed on their special day. But I realized I pointed it back to the fact that I was missed on the special day. So anytime I write things out when I'm feeling the emotional, the anxiety, the frustration, the pain, the anger. It would help me to identify patterns. And you want to identify your patterns. You should become a student of you. And I'm a huge teacher, huge proponent, huge suggester of that because you know you. And there are things about you that if you could just identify the pattern, you can figure out the counter. And so for T, what I've learned to counter that now that I see the pattern of it is around that time with people I trust that I know love me and support me and celebrate me. I have to plan and arrange experiences. And then the third thing I will offer as you're going on your journey, so just remember number one is pay attention. What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? It should make you stop and pay attention. Number two, once you discover it, start documenting it. Look at the patterns, look at the things. And then once you find the patterns, build the something. So number one, excuse me. So again, remember, number one is get this out of you. Talk to somebody, get a mentor, good trusted friend, someone who sees you, knows you, loves you, supports you, celebrates you. Number two, once you discover the patterns, or just write everything down so you can look for patterns. If there's a pattern, you can disrupt it positively. And then number three, at some point, you want to allow yourself to be okay with you. If you never improve past the moment you're in right now, of the 7 billion people on the planet, can you love you? Like, if you never achieve another thing, if you never succeed another way, if you never have another asset, and you don't buy another thing, and you don't accomplish another task, can you love you where you are at, like right now? And, again, as someone who's just intensely been trauma informed and had to really fight the fight of growth beyond the moment, I would say of the 3 steps, that was the harder step. Because I was always, more critical of me than anybody could be. I was the most critical of T. And so that little inner critic can, keep you unsettled in ways that you should just be confident, and it can chip away at the way you esteem yourself. And so I esteemed myself very, very lowly. And there was nothing that I could do, to satisfy the critic. How do you grow to the place where you can just appreciate you where you are right now? Definitely have hope for the future. Definitely, challenge yourself in a good way to grow. But how are you okay with where you are right now? And I would say that that came from a lot of self-talk. It came from a lot of, me showing me where I'm strong and then staying in those areas, not spending a ton of time where I'm weak, as it pertains to criticism, not growth. And I think that, again, if you can heal and grow to the place where you become your cheerleader, then it doesn't matter a super ton what other people think, and that's where you start to really take off and grow, and that's a different mindset. Now, do you do wrong things? Do you make mistakes? Do you blow it from time to time? Do I? Yeah. Like, yeah. But they don't tank me anymore. They don't keep me, for days at a time ruminating on the idea that I'm broken. And so, I feel like this is a little bit of a heavy lift, but I also think that people are dealing with heavy things, especially as they pertain to your interior and trauma and abuse and growth. And even if you didn't have a lifestyle of that growing up the way I did, but you had a moment of it, just breaking up in a relationship is traumatic. Just posting something on social media and somebody's saying something idiotic. That's traumatic. We live in a world where that experience is around the corner pretty much every day. And so the hope is that, in sharing this little bit from the book with you, that it helps you. I know that we are in some really interesting times right now. And so if you could just be really super intentional about you being emotionally, physically, financially, relationally, and career healthy, it makes things a lot easier and a lot better and keeps you strong. And so again, if that was helpful to you, that is like one short portion of a paragraph of a book that was written with love for you. And that book is called The Risk of Being Seen. And it's how to come out of unwanted invisibility and embrace the will to win. And it'll help you grow to the place that you absolutely love your life. So thank you for tuning in today. Make sure you go to SweetTeeTime.com and pre-order The Risk of Being Seen. And I will see you back for another episode where I share more from the book in the interest of getting us stronger, smarter, faster, and better.